Unfortunately, there are too many negative people around us. It's as if they walk around with a hammer in their hands and see everything they encounter as a nail. They constantly look for opportunities to criticize and judge. They easily comment on matters that don't concern them. Part of our mind is aware of this. It says, "This doesn't concern me. I shouldn't take it seriously. I shouldn't care." But people are still affected. First, I want to say this. I don't take the criticism of people who never appreciate me seriously. But here's what I separate. If someone who previously noticed the good, approached with good intentions, and offered sincere support gives negative feedback, I stop and think, could they be right? I'll open a small parenthesis here. Some people use this as a tactic. First, they say something nice, then immediately follow it up with criticism. But this is manipulation. You can tell this to some extent. If there is a time gap between the nice words and the criticism, then you can take that criticism seriously. Another important point is this. The moment someone says something, our minds automatically tend to accept it as true. But remember, just because someone says something doesn't mean it has to be true. Everyone sees life through their own lens. Sometimes, even if people have good intentions, they can have a perspective that constantly sees the flaws, that constantly criticizes. I experience this most with my father. I think my father is one of the best people in the world, but the life he has lived, his childhood traumas, have made his outlook on life more critical. I used to constantly argue. I would say, "You can't think like that, you can't talk like that." Then I realized, this is how my father sees life. Now I just say, "You're right, Dad," and move on. I don't get into arguments. I look back, and an hour later, I've already forgotten about it. Keep this in mind. Just because someone says something doesn't mean it has to be true. When someone says something that bothers you, your mood is ruined. You say, "Why am I letting this affect me?" But this is true for everyone. What you need to do here is not to try to get rid of this feeling immediately. The more you focus on it, the more upset you become. Do you know what you can do? Get back to your work, your routine. But there's a big trap here. If you try to prove yourself to that person, a small thing becomes a big problem. Ask yourself, is there really a situation where you have to explain yourself? If not, let it go. They can think whatever they want. No matter what you do, some people will still think what they want. At this point, exercise your right not to respond and move on with your life. Sometimes people criticize you by comparing you to others. Within the family, at work, among relatives. If you are sensitive to this, people can be very harsh on themselves. Remember this. Compare yourself only to yourself. Look at where you were 6 months ago. Look at where you were 1 year ago. Everyone's story is different. Everyone's journey is different. If you've done your best within your means and you're better than you were in the past, that's enough. If you fall into the trap of comparing yourself to others, you'll be very upset. I want to share another insight. Sometimes people say things that hurt you, and you carry the impact of it for days. I once had an incident where I kept the same sentence going in my head for 45 days. Then I went and talked to that person. Do you know what happened? The person in front of me didn't even remember saying it. That's when a light bulb went off in my head. Some people just talk. They say things just for the sake of saying them. They don't take themselves as seriously as you take them. They don't even take themselves seriously. How do you deal with difficult and negative people? These are my methods. If you have methods that work for you, I'd love it if you shared them in the comments. Thank you for listening, beautiful person. Take care of yourself. See you soon.